Buckle up, because you're about to hear the insane story of how I caught my wife cheating with her boss and took the ultimate revenge. I was the guy who believed in marriage, in loyalty, in all the vows that came with it. I thought my wife, Melissa, believed in them too. We had been married for 15 years. We had 2 great kids. We had built a life together. Our marriage wasn't perfect, what marriage is, but I thought we were solid. I thought we had trust. Turns out, I was living in a complete illusion. And it all started with a coincidence. That day, I had a client meeting downtown. The kind of meeting that could have easily been an email but, for some reason, required a full hour of small talk and coffee refills. It wrapped up earlier than expected. So instead of heading straight back to work, I decided to take a walk and grab a coffee. That decision changed everything. I was waiting at the crosswalk near a busy intersection when I saw her. Melissa. At first, my brain didn't fully register it. She was supposed to be at work. Her office was a few blocks away. But there she was, stepping out of the entrance of a hotel. And she wasn't alone. A man followed behind her. Not just any man. Her boss, David. I froze where I stood, my feet planted on the pavement like they were cemented there. Melissa was laughing at something he said, adjusting her blouse, brushing her hair back in that way she always did when she wanted to look effortlessly attractive. He leaned in slightly as he spoke to her. A little too close, a little too comfortable. Something about the way she looked around set off every alarm in my head. It wasn't that she looked guilty. It was that she looked cautious. Like she was making sure no one saw them. Like she was making sure I didn't see them. My heart pounded. My brain tried to come up with logical explanations. Maybe it was a work event at the hotel. Maybe they had a business lunch there. Maybe I was being ridiculous. But then I saw her pull out her phone, glance at the screen quickly, then tuck it away like she didn't want to be caught. And just before they parted ways, David reached out and lightly touched the small of her back. That was it. That was the moment I knew. That wasn't just a work meeting. That was something else. I stood there, heart hammering against my ribs, feeling like someone had just dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. A million thoughts slammed into me all at once. Should I confront her right now? Should I follow her? Should I go home and pretend I never saw this? My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. I could feel the rage boiling up, but I swallowed it down. No, I wasn't going to storm up to her and demand answers, because I already knew what would happen. She'd lie. She'd look me dead in the eyes and tell me I was imagining things. She'd make me feel like the bad guy. I wasn't going to let that happen. So instead, I turned around and walked the other way. That night, I acted completely normal. It took every ounce of self-control I had. At dinner, I casually asked, "How was work today?" Melissa didn't even flinch. She sighed, rolling her eyes like always. Ugh, exhausting. Meetings all day. My boss is driving me crazy. The words came out so naturally, so easily. I forced myself to nod like I believed her, because that was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to believe a single thing she said ever again. I didn't sleep much that night. Melissa lay beside me, her breathing slow and steady, like she didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, my mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour. I turned my head to look at her. Was she even the same woman I married? 15 years together. 2 kids. A life I thought was stable. And now, just a few hours ago, I had seen her walk out of a hotel with another man. Her boss, David. I wanted to shake her awake and demand answers. But I already knew what would happen. She'd lie. She'd twist the story. She'd make me feel like the crazy one. So, instead, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I was going to find out the truth myself. The next morning, I acted completely normal. I kissed her on the cheek, told her to have a great day, and watched as she got dressed for work. She took extra time picking out her outfit. A silky white blouse. A fitted pencil skirt. Heels that made her legs look longer. She looked at herself in the mirror and adjusted her necklace. For years, I thought she was just dressing up for work. Now I wondered if she was dressing up for him. I had to know for sure. So, I started watching her. Not just casually, I mean really watching. Melissa had patterns, habits, and now that I was paying attention, I started seeing them all. She began leaving earlier than usual. Morning meetings, she said. She started getting home later, sighing dramatically about how much work she had. She started checking her phone constantly, not just scrolling through social media, texting, always texting. And every time I walked by, she'd tilt the screen away. That was new. One night, she came home wearing different clothes than she had left in. I raised an eyebrow. New outfit? She barely looked at me. Ugh. I spilled coffee all over myself at work. Had to borrow something from a coworker. I nodded. Bad day, huh? She sighed. The worst. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked the laundry. No coffee-stained clothes. No evidence that anything had spilled. I clenched my fists. Melissa wasn't just lying. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks. I needed to be sure. So, I started following her. The next Tuesday, she left the house at 10:30 a.m., saying she had a client meeting. I took the day off work, got in my car, and followed her downtown. She drove right past her office building. She didn't even slow down. Instead, she parked a few blocks away, close enough to her workplace that it wouldn't look suspicious, but far enough that she wasn't taking any chances. She got out, smoothed down her skirt, checked her reflection in the car window, and walked down the street, straight to the same damn hotel. I gripped the steering wheel. I watched as she stepped inside without hesitation, like she'd done this 100 times before. 5 minutes later, David walked in after her. There it was. The truth. She wasn't working late. She wasn't going to meetings. She wasn't stuck in traffic. Melissa was cheating, and she wasn't even being careful about it. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. So, I followed her again that Thursday. Same routine. She left at 10:30 a.m., drove downtown, parked in the same spot, and went straight into the hotel. David arrived minutes later. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. This was routine. A carefully planned, well-executed affair. I couldn't stop myself from wondering how long this had been going on. Months? Years? Had she been sneaking around behind my back while I was home with our kids? While I was working overtime to make sure she had everything she wanted. I went home that night and watched her pretend nothing had changed. She was extra nice that evening, made my favorite meal, laughed at my dumb jokes, curled up next to me on the couch like she actually cared. I almost wanted to scream. I knew exactly why she was being affectionate. Because she felt guilty. And this was her way of making herself feel better. I gritted my teeth and let her kiss me goodnight, pretending I didn't know. Because when I finally confronted her, there wasn't going to be a single excuse she could use. There wasn't going to be a way out. I was going to catch her in the act, and I was going to make sure she regretted every second of it. Melissa thought she had me fooled. For weeks, I had watched her leave at 10:30 a.m. sharp every Tuesday and Thursday, claiming she had client meetings. And every single time, I followed her. She never once went to a client meeting. She never even went near her office. Instead, she drove straight to the same hotel, parked in the same spot, and walked in without hesitation. And every time, David followed. I had seen it with my own eyes. But that wasn't enough. Because Melissa was a liar. She had gotten too good at twisting the truth. If I confronted her now, I knew exactly how it would go. She'd act shocked, offended. She'd call me paranoid, controlling, insecure. She'd gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I wasn't going to give her the chance. So, I needed proof, something she couldn't lie her way out of. That's when I decided to hire a lawyer. Michael came highly recommended. He was the kind of attorney you called when you wanted to win. I met him the next day in his office, a sleek, minimalist place downtown. He listened patiently as I laid everything out. When I finished, he sat back in his chair, completely unfazed. This happens more often than you'd think, he said, steepling his fingers. But if you want to win, you need solid proof. Photos, videos, timestamps, something she can't talk her way out of. I nodded. I need something airtight. Michael smirked. I know exactly who to call. That's how I met Daniel. Daniel was ex-military, sharp, methodical, and damn good at what he did. Within 48 hours, he had Melissa under surveillance. He tracked her movements. He took notes on every lie she told me and compared them with where she actually was. The results? Melissa wasn't just sneaking around. She was an expert at it. One evening, Daniel handed me a folder. "Take a look at this," he said. I flipped it open, and there it was, undeniable proof. The first photo showed Melissa and David walking into the hotel together. My hands clenched. The next page had time-stamped shots of them leaving, 2 hours later. Right below that, David's hand on the small of her back as they waited for an elevator. I could barely breathe as I turned the next page. A still image from hotel security footage. Melissa and David, checking in under fake names. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine. A system. She had done this before. Probably for years. I sat there, gripping the edges of the folder, trying to process the sheer scale of what I was looking at. Melissa had lied to my face over and over. And she had done it without hesitation. Michael watched me carefully. "This is exactly what we needed," he said, flipping through the file. "With this, she's got no defense." I should have felt relieved. I should have felt like I had one. But all I felt was rage. Melissa had made me look like a fool. While I was working late, taking care of our kids, planning our future, she was doing this. And the worst part? She probably thought she would never get caught. She thought I would never find out. I clenched my fists. She was about to realize how wrong she was. Michael leaned forward. "If you're ready, I can start preparing the divorce paperwork." I took a deep breath. Not yet. Divorce wasn't enough. I needed her to feel the humiliation she had put me through. I needed revenge. I needed her to suffer. Michael studied me for a moment, then said, "I take it you want to hit back first?" I didn't answer right away, because I was already thinking about my next move. Melissa wasn't the only one who had destroyed a marriage. David had a wife. And if Melissa had perfected the art of lying, I had no doubt that David was just as bad. His wife had no idea. She deserved to know. I glanced at Michael. "Do you know anything about David's wife?" Michael smirked. "I was wondering when you'd ask." He reached for his laptop, typed something quickly, then turned the screen toward me. A photo popped up. Laura. Blonde. Elegant. The kind of woman who looked like she had it all together. Her social media was filled with happy family photos. Vacations. Anniversaries. Smiling pictures with David, the cheating bastard. She had no clue that her husband was sneaking off in the middle of the day with mine. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for certain. She was about to find out. And when she did, Melissa and David were going to wish they had never met. Melissa thought she was untouchable. She thought she had everything under control. Sneaking around, making excuses, keeping up the perfect wife act at home. She had no idea that I had all the proof I needed. And now, I had David's wife. The one person who had just as much to lose as I did. That night, after Melissa went to bed, I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen. I had already decided. I was going to tell Laura the truth. She deserved to know. I created a new email account, something anonymous, and started typing. "Laura, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your husband, David, has been cheating on you with my wife, Melissa. I have proof. If you'd like to talk, let me know." I attached a few choice photos, nothing too graphic, but enough to make it undeniable. I hovered over the send button, hesitating. Once I sent it, there was no going back. But I wasn't backing down now. I clicked send. Then, I waited. I expected it to take a while. Maybe she wouldn't even see it right away. But I was wrong. She responded in 10 minutes. "Where can we meet?" No confusion. No denial. No hesitation. Just 5 words that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't the type to ignore this. She was ready to act. We arranged to meet at a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town, somewhere quiet, where we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. I arrived 10 minutes early. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would she be furious? Devastated? In denial? Then, at exactly 3 p.m., she walked in. Laura was composed. Too composed. She had the look of someone who had spent years playing the perfect wife, smiling at dinner parties, keeping up appearances. But her eyes? Her eyes told me she was ready to burn everything to the ground. She spotted me immediately and walked straight to my table. "You must be him," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I nodded. Thanks for meeting me. She folded her arms on the table. Show me what you have. I handed her my phone, already open to the photos. She took it without a word and started scrolling. I watched her closely. At first, there was no reaction. Then, after a full minute, she let out a quiet, bitter laugh. Unbelievable, she muttered under her breath. She kept scrolling, her fingers tightening around the phone. She reached the part where David had booked the hotel room under a fake name. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. I should be surprised, she said, setting the phone down. But I'm not. I frowned. You knew? She let out a dry chuckle. Not about this. But I knew what kind of man I married. My stomach twisted. This isn't the first time? She shook her head. No. The first time was years ago. He promised it wouldn't happen again. She scoffed. Guess that was a lie too. I didn't know what to say. She had been living with a serial cheater. I had spent the last few weeks feeling like an idiot, but Laura? Laura had spent years pretending she wasn't married to a liar. What are you going to do? I asked. She tilted her head, watching me carefully. That depends, she said. What do you want to do? I didn't hesitate. I want to destroy them. She smiled. Good. We sat there for another hour, talking. Not just about Melissa and David. About everything. How long we had been married. How many times we had ignored red flags. How many excuses we had made for our spouses. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the fact that we had let it happen. The fact that we had trusted them. And the fact that, for years, we had believed in a marriage that didn't exist. At some point, Laura sighed and leaned back in her chair. You know what's funny? She said. I raised an eyebrow. What? She smirked. I don't even feel sad. I feel free. I let her words sink in. And for the first time since I had discovered the affair, I understood exactly what she meant. Laura wasn't just angry. She was strategic. The moment I told her everything, she didn't cry. She didn't ask me for details she already knew would hurt. Instead, she leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice steady. We're going to destroy them. I nodded. Then let's do it. And just like that, we began planning the perfect revenge. Step 1. Find the room number. David and Melissa weren't exactly creative. They had been meeting at the same hotel for months. Same excuses. Same lies. Which meant it wouldn't be hard to figure out which room they used. Laura and I went to the hotel the day before their next scheduled meetup. Laura, being the genius she was, had already thought up a cover story. She walked up to the front desk, looking just distressed enough to sell it. Hi, I think my husband booked a room here, but I lost the reservation info. Can you check for a David Mitchell? The receptionist hesitated. I'm sorry, but we can't give out that information. Laura sighed dramatically. Listen, I just need to know if he's checked in. It's urgent. Family emergency. Still, the receptionist wouldn't budge. That's when I spotted the key cards behind the counter. Neatly arranged. Clearly labeled with room numbers. And just like that, we had our answer. Room 214. I turned to Laura. That's all we need. She smirked. Now for the fun part. Step 2. Get the right disguises. We needed a way to get into the room without suspicion. We needed to be invisible. So, we became hotel staff. Laura, who I was starting to believe had more connections than a mob boss, made a few calls. It's amazing what people will give you if you sound confident enough, she said, handing me a folded uniform. I shook my head, grinning. I'm slightly terrified of you. She winked. Good. We changed in a nearby restroom, checking ourselves in the mirror. I had to admit, we looked legit. If I didn't know better, I'd say we were just another pair of employees going about their work. And that was exactly what we needed. Because the next time Melissa and David met, we were walking right into their room. Step 3, the final move. Everything was set. We knew where they'd be. We knew when they'd be there. And now, we were going to catch them in the act. We rehearsed our approach down to the smallest detail. We wouldn't knock right away. We'd wait until we heard voices inside. We'd enter the room at the perfect moment. Not too soon. Not too late. Just long enough to make sure they were caught with no way out. As we finalized our plan, Laura leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. They think they're untouchable, she said. I exhaled. Not anymore. She smirked. I can't wait to see their faces. Neither could I. Because in less than 24 hours, Melissa and David's world was about to crumble. And we were the ones holding the match. The waiting game. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Melissa was right next to me, sleeping peacefully, as if nothing was wrong. As if she hadn't been lying to me for months. As if she wasn't about to lose everything. I turned my head slightly, watching her breathe. Would she even be sorry when this all came crashing down? Would she beg for forgiveness? Or would she just lie again? The thought made my stomach turn. I had loved this woman for 15 years. And in less than a day, I was about to watch that love burn to the ground. And the scariest part? I wasn't even sad about it anymore. I was ready. Laura's last surprise. The next morning, Laura and I met for coffee before heading to the hotel. She looked calm, focused, dangerous. Everything set? I asked. She nodded. Yep. But there's one more thing. I frowned. What? She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. I looked down. Emails. Documents. Evidence. These are internal company records, she said. HR complaints. Emails from other employees. Things I probably shouldn't have access to. I glanced up at her. And? She smirked. David's been sleeping with more than just Melissa. My eyes widened. Wait, what? Office rumors, she said. It's not just your wife. He's had a history. Melissa's just the latest one. My jaw clenched. So even if he somehow talks his way out of this, I'm sending these straight to corporate, she said. By the end of the day, he'll be fired either way. I let out a low whistle. Damn. She leaned forward. You still sure you want to go through with this? I met her gaze without hesitation. Absolutely. We picked up our hotel uniforms, gathered our supplies, and walked toward the hotel. In less than an hour, everything would change. Melissa and David had no idea what was coming. They thought they were unstoppable. They thought their secret was safe. But today? Today was the day their entire world would crumble. Laura and I met outside the hotel parking lot, both dressed in stolen hotel staff uniforms. She had pulled some strings, called in a favor from a friend who worked in hospitality, and secured everything we needed. Uniforms, a cleaning cart, even a fake work order. It was almost too easy. I adjusted my uniform cap and glanced at her. You ready for this? Laura smirked. I've been ready for years. I nodded. Then let's end this. We pushed the cart through the hotel lobby, blending in perfectly. No one gave us a second glance. People don't notice hotel staff. That was their mistake. And it was about to cost them everything. We reached room 214, their usual spot. I took a deep breath. Laura checked her phone. They checked in 20 minutes ago, she whispered. Perfect. They were right in the middle of it. I tightened my grip on the cart. Let's do this. Laura knocked sharply on the door. Silence. Then, Melissa's irritated voice from inside. We didn't order room service. Laura knocked again. Housekeeping, she called, deepening her voice. Another pause. Then, footsteps. The door swung open, and there stood David, half-dressed, his shirt barely pulled over his shoulders, his face twisted in confusion. What the? I didn't let him finish. I stepped forward, shoving the door open wide enough for us to walk in. And there she was, Melissa, sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a hotel sheet, her hair a mess, her face pure horror. For a moment, no one moved. Time seemed to freeze. Then, Laura raised her phone and started taking pictures. David's expression turned from shock to rage. What the hell are you doing? He barked, stepping toward us. I smirked. Catching you red-handed, obviously. Melissa shot up from the bed, clutching the sheet against herself. You followed me? I laughed. Oh, sweetheart. I did more than that. I pulled out my own phone and hit record. David's face drained of color. Melissa gasped. Are you serious right now? Laura's voice was calm and deadly. We'll be forwarding this to your boss and your families, she said. Melissa's scream was almost instant. You can't do that. Laura raised an eyebrow. Watch us. David grabbed my arm. Big mistake. I shoved him off, my voice dangerously low. Touch me again, and I swear you'll be leaving this hotel in an ambulance. He backed off immediately. Melissa was losing it. Her face twisted in fury, hands shaking as she pointed at me. You bastard, she shrieked. How could you do this to me? I actually laughed in her face. You did this to yourself. Laura took one last picture, then gave a satisfied nod. Enjoy unemployment, she said to David, tucking her phone away. His jaw dropped. What? Oh, she smirked. Did I forget to mention? I work in HR. Melissa staggered. Wait, what? David looked like he was going to be sick. You've been screwing your subordinate, Laura continued, slow and deliberate. That's a direct violation of company policy. And I'll personally be sending these photos to HR today. David's hands shook. You can't do that. Just did, she said, sending an email with a click of her phone. Melissa looked between us, completely panicked. Please, she whispered. Please, we can talk about this. We can fix this. I shook my head. You're done, Melissa. And with that, I turned around and walked out. Laura followed, her heels clicking against the floor. Behind us, Melissa was screaming. David was cursing. They were scrambling, trying to put out a fire that was already a raging inferno. And honestly, it was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. By the time Laura and I got outside, we were grinning like idiots. That was beautiful, she said, still breathless from the adrenaline. I chuckled. Yeah, it really was. She exhaled deeply, shaking her head. You think they'll ever recover from that? I smirked. Nope. She laughed. A real, genuine, freeing laugh. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free to. Melissa tried calling me later that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I blocked her number and poured myself a drink. Laura, meanwhile, followed through with her promise. By the next morning, both David and Melissa were fired. Their families found out. Their entire world collapsed. And Laura and I? We didn't lose a damn thing. Melissa and David were finished. By the time Laura and I walked out of that hotel, we had done exactly what we came to do. We had caught them in the act. We had destroyed their lives. We had ruined their jobs, their reputations, their families. And the best part? We weren't the ones left picking up the pieces. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Like a weight had been lifted off my chest. No more suspicion. No more late nights wondering what Melissa was doing. No more second-guessing myself. It was over. And I was free. Come on, Laura said as we walked toward the parking lot. I think we deserve a drink. I smirked. I think we deserve a whole bottle. She laughed. Agreed. We left our ridiculous hotel staff uniforms in the back of my car and drove to a small bar just outside the city. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't one of those sleek, modern places filled with people trying to impress each other. It was quiet. Exactly what we needed. The bartender barely glanced at us as we slid into a booth in the corner. Laura ordered whiskey. Neat. I raised an eyebrow. Damn, not what I expected. She shrugged. After what I just did, I need something strong. I chuckled. Fair enough. I ordered the same. When the drinks came, we clinked glasses, took a sip, and exhaled at the same time. For the first few minutes, we just sat there, letting the adrenaline settle. Then, Laura turned to me, a smirk playing on her lips. So, how does it feel? I raised an eyebrow. How does what feel? Winning. I thought about it. Then, I smiled. It feels damn good. She grinned. Told you. I shook my head, laughing softly. I still can't believe it. I can't believe they thought they could get away with it. Laura took another sip of her drink. That's the thing about cheaters. They always think they're smarter than everyone else, that they'll never get caught. She swirled the whiskey in her glass, her expression darkening slightly. But when they do, they crumble. I nodded, watching her. For the first time since we met, I really looked at her. She wasn't just someone who had been betrayed. She wasn't just another victim. She was sharp, strategic, strong as hell, and she wasn't broken. She was rebuilding. I could feel the tension shift between us, like we had gone from co-conspirators to something else, something neither of us expected. something we both felt, but neither of us said a word. Not yet. Instead, we just kept drinking. One drink turned into two. Two turned into four. Somewhere between the second and third round, we started talking about our marriages. Not just the betrayals. The before. You know, Laura said, her voice softer now, I actually thought I had a good marriage once. I leaned back, listening. Yeah. She nodded, staring at her drink. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I thought David loved me. I thought we were a team. She let out a bitter laugh. I should have known better. The first time he cheated, I should have left, but I stayed. I forgave him. And for what? She looked up at me. For this. I didn't know what to say, because I understood. I had done the same damn thing. I had ignored the red flags. I had trusted someone who didn't deserve it. I had built a life with a person who was lying to my face. So instead of answering, I just lifted my glass. To being stupid, I said. Laura smiled. We clinked glasses. And for the first time all night, I saw something shift in her eyes. A look that told me she was done feeling like a fool. Just like I was. It happened fast. Maybe it was the shared betrayal. Maybe it was the fact that we had been drinking for hours. Maybe it was the fact that, underneath all the anger and bitterness, we had chemistry. But at some point, we stopped talking about them and started looking at each other. Laura leaned in first. Her voice was quiet but firm. They don't get to be the only ones who move on. I exhaled slowly, my pulse picking up. No, I agreed. They don't. And just like that, we made a decision. A decision that had nothing to do with revenge. A decision that had everything to do with us. We left the bar together and checked into a hotel of our own. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was carrying someone else's mistakes. I didn't feel like I was being used, lied to, manipulated. I felt in control. And when I turned over and saw Laura lying next to me, watching me with a smirk, I realized something else. I didn't regret it. Not even a little. Melissa and David had already taken so much from us. But this was ours. Laura stretched, letting out a satisfied sigh. So, she said playfully, now what? I thought about it. Then, I grinned. Breakfast? She laughed. God, yes. But after that, I shrugged, feeling the weight of my old life falling away. Whatever we want. And for the first time in a long time, that sounded pretty damn good. Within a week, everything collapsed for Melissa and David. The world they had built, the lies, the sneaking around, the secrets, came crashing down, and Laura and I were the ones who lit the match. And we didn't feel an ounce of guilt. True to her word, Laura wasted no time reporting David to HR. She didn't just send an email. She walked into the office, handed over the photos, the timestamps, the hotel receipts, and let the company's strict anti-fraternization policy do the rest. David didn't stand a chance. By the end of the day, he was fired. Melissa lasted one extra day before they called her in and showed her everything. Apparently, she tried to deny it at first, but it didn't matter. She was done. 2 careers, gone in 48 hours. And the best part? David had no severance package. Melissa? She got blacklisted. No respectable firm would hire her after this scandal. It was over. I wasted no time. I walked straight into my lawyer's office and filed for divorce. There was nothing to fight over. I had everything I needed. Melissa had no leverage, no excuses, no way to twist the story. She knew it too. She didn't even try to argue. She just signed the papers quietly, looking more defeated than I had ever seen her. But that was her problem. Laura filed her divorce paperwork the same day. David tried to talk her out of it, tried to beg, tried to convince her it was just a mistake. She laughed in his face. He was out of the house by the weekend. If Melissa thought she was getting equal custody, she was delusional. I had the evidence. The proof of her lies, her cheating, her complete disregard for our family. The judge didn't even hesitate. Full custody. Melissa could see the kids on weekends, if she ever got her act together. At first, she seemed like she wanted to try. She would text me, asking when she could pick them up, trying to sound responsible. But it didn't last. She started missing visits, showing up late, making excuses. and I stopped waiting for her. The kids were better off without her bullshit. If Melissa thought she had it bad, David's situation was worse. Laura's lawyer was brutal. Within days, she had frozen his assets. He couldn't move money, couldn't hide anything. And Laura? She walked away with half of everything, including their house. David was homeless, unemployed, and drowning in legal fees. And no one felt sorry for him. She still tries. Every few days, I get a message. Can we talk? I miss you. I made a mistake. I don't answer. She lost that privilege the moment she decided to destroy our marriage for some cheap office fling. She made her choice. And I made mine. Laura and I still keep in touch. Maybe more than just keep in touch. It started with a few texts, just checking in. Then, we started grabbing coffee. Then, dinner. Then, we just stopped pretending we weren't something more. Because the truth is, we understand each other in a way no one else does. We went through hell together. We built each other back up. And now, we're finally happy. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And Melissa? She's exactly where she deserves to be. Alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think revenge like this is justified? Or should they have just walked away? If you like this story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.